Hello, everyone. Welcome back to U.S. Government Explained. I'm Freya. So far, we've explored the U.S. system of government and how it is both a representative democracy and a republic. We also learned that the highest law in the United States is the Constitution. And we learned that in order to change the Constitution, there is a long, difficult process to add amendments. Today, we're going deeper into one of the most important protections in American life and the very first amendments made to our most important document, the Bill of Rights. Why does this list of amendments matter so much? Why weren't they included from the start? And how do these rights shape debates and conflicts even today? Let's take a journey through the history and the impact of the Bill of Rights. When the Constitution was drafted in 1787 and sent to the states for ratification, many Americans supported it, but not all. Some critics, called anti-federalists, feared that the new national government would become too powerful and threaten individual liberties. These critics pointed out that the Constitution, as written, did not explicitly protect rights such as free speech, trial by jury, or protection from unreasonable searches. To reassure opponents and to persuade enough states to ratify the Constitution, the Federalists, those supporting it, promised that a Bill of Rights would be added later. This promise was central to winning ratification in states like Massachusetts, Virginia, and New York. So even though the original Constitution did not include a rights list, the desire for protection was built into the political compromise. Shortly after the Constitution took effect, Congress proposed a set of amendments. In 1789, they submitted 12 proposed amendments. By 1791, 10 of them were ratified by enough states. Those became what we now call the Bill of Rights. These first 10 amendments were designed to limit government power and safeguard individual freedoms. As for historical copies, today there is a famous version of the Bill of Rights on display in the National Archives in Washington, D.C., along with the original Constitution and Declaration of Independence. Visitors can see the handwritten parchment documents that helped shape American law. But note that copies of the proposed amendments that failed to pass are not always displayed. Now let's walk through each of the first 10 amendments and some key stories showing their importance. The First Amendment guarantees freedoms of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition. This amendment protects how we express ourselves and how we criticize government. In New York Times versus United States, also known as the Pentagon Papers case in 1971, the Supreme Court limited the government's ability to block publication of classified documents. Today, debates about social media, hate speech, and misinformation often turn on free speech rights. Then we have the Second Amendment, which is the right to keep and bear arms. And here we don't mean body part arms, but weapons arms. This is one of the more controversial amendments today. Historically, it reflected colonial militia's role. In District of Columbia v. Heller in 2008, the court held that individuals have a right to gun ownership for self-defense even in federal areas. Ongoing debates revolve around background checks, assault weapons, and public safety. The Third Amendment discusses quartering of soldiers. Quartering here means that soldiers are living in citizens' houses. This rarely litigated amendment prohibits the military from forcing citizens to house soldiers in peacetime. It reflects colonial resentment of British troops forcing citizens to turn over their private homes or allow soldiers to stay in some of their rooms before the Revolution. The Fourth Amendment is about protection from unreasonable searches and seizures. This requires law enforcement to have warrants and probable cause. In Mapp v. Ohio in 1961, evidence obtained that violated the Fourth Amendment could not be used in trial. Modern issues around this right include digital privacy, cell phones, and location tracking. The Fifth Amendment is about due process, double jeopardy, self-incrimination, and just compensation. You've seen it in movies. I plead the Fifth. This amendment protects people from testifying against themselves and guarantees that no one can be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Due process means fair treatment through the justice system. It also ensures fair compensation when the government takes private property for its own use. This is a term called eminent domain. Also important to note, this idea of due process has been discussed a lot in the news these days, especially when it comes to immigrants' rights. The next amendment, the Sixth, is about the rights of accused persons. This guarantees a speedy and public trial, and especially a trial by a jury of peers, meaning people who live near and similarly to you. It also guarantees the right to counsel, that's a lawyer, to confront witnesses, and to have an impartial jury. That means they shouldn't be biased one way or the other before they come to trial. Here we can think of the case Gideon v. Wainwright in 1963, where the court held that states must provide lawyers to defendants who cannot afford one. The Seventh Amendment is about jury trial in civil cases. So in cases over larger amounts of money, citizens have a right to a jury trial. It originated from English common law and is less frequently litigated today. The Eighth Amendment says no cruel or unusual punishments. This prohibits fines that are too large or don't fit the crime, and cruel and unusual punishment. Debates continue around the death penalty, sentencing, and prison conditions today. The Ninth Amendment is about unenumerated rights. This says that just because a right is not listed doesn't mean people don't have it. It supports the idea that people have more rights than those just explicitly written. And finally, the 10th Amendment discusses powers reserved to states or the people. And this amendment establishes that powers not delegated or given to the federal government are reserved to the states or to the people. It reinforces the federal structure of the United States and limits central authority. Even though these amendments are over 200 years old, they remain alive in legal battles and everyday life. For example, free speech and press rights are central in debates over political advertising, social media bans, and cancel culture. Fourth Amendment issues arise when the government seeks access to digital data. Do the police need a warrant to read someone's emails or search a smartphone? That's one question being discussed. Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights are at stake in criminal justice reform, interrogations, and the rights of the accused. The Eighth Amendment is invoked in debates over prison conditions, solitary confinement, and the morality of the death penalty. And the balance between federal and state power under the 10th Amendment surfaces in issues like marijuana legalization, education standards, and healthcare policy. All of this shows that the Bill of Rights isn't just a historical relic. It's a living foundation of Americans' freedoms and legal protections. And one important note, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are not restricted to U.S. citizens. They protect and relate to anyone on U.S. soil, including immigrants, whether legal or not. The Bill of Rights transformed the Constitution from a framework of government into a guarantee of personal liberty. These amendments remind us that power must have limits, and that a government that protects rights is stronger and more trusted. As the country evolves, these rights don't go away. The challenge is how to interpret and apply them in new contexts. Digital privacy, surveillance, modern speech, and more. As we move through these episodes, we'll dive deeper into how these rights developed further in practice, how courts interpret them, and what that means for citizens' daily lives. Now, I've got a question for you. Does your country guarantee these rights too? Can you think of any similarities or differences between your country and the U.S. when it comes to individual freedoms? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for joining me on this episode of U.S. Government Explained. You can find transcripts, sources, and more at our website, www.sharing-english.com/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And don't forget to check out our culture-focused episodes of the Sharing English podcast every Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts. Bye!